Okay, we are recording. Thank you for the reminder, Kim, but I did try to be a little more proactive this time. Okay. Let me just explain a couple things that I'm going to try to stick to this morning. I'm going to limit this morning's meeting to an hour and a half. That's my goal. I'm going to ask that you place your questions in the Q&A. If I address it prior to getting to the Q&A, I'm not going to repeat it. If your question is not answered, you can please email your grade AP and CC Ms. Agronsoni. If you're not sure how to get a hold of them, you can check the website or call the office on Monday, and they'll let you know who you should email with your questions. So I am going to ask, and this will also be recorded on YouTube, so you can feel free to go back and watch it if you missed it or missed part of it or whatever the case may be. I just want to try to avoid repetition. I'm going to avoid addressing opinion questions. I do know that everyone's frustrated. I recognize that. I'm as frustrated as everyone else is. But, things like, why are we doing this? Why is this way? Why are we opening? Why aren't we full? Those are just policies that are beyond my control. So I don't want to spend, too much time offering an opinion or thoughts on things that I really don't have any control over. I'm also going to just remind everyone we can't be compared to other schools. I've had parents say, my child's cousin goes to this school and they're doing this, or I know a principal who's doing this. There are many schools doing things many different ways. There is no comparison between public and private. The rules are completely different. I have a child in each, and their experiences are very different. And even within the public schools, principals, school size, number of staff on accommodation, number of students, spacing issues, every school is very unique. And I'm very close with the principals in District 24 and beyond. And I've spent an inordinate amount of time meeting with them officially, and then side meetings with those that I'm more close with, particularly our schools in the area. And each of us has a very unique set of circumstances, and what's going to work for 49 may not work for 128 or 113 or MS 67. So we're all kind of left to sort of do what's best for our building and make, but I can assure you that anything we're doing, we're just acting in what we feel is the best interest of students and their families. A few factual things I'll get out, and then I'm just going to go straight into frequently asked questions. Next week, September 16, 17, and 18, those days will be used to begin connecting with students and their families. They're not necessarily instructional days. The guidance right now is that online interactions will be about an hour. Teachers will be reaching out, explaining how to log on to sites, making sure students have connectivity. If we can't get things squared away or connectivity problems or things like that fixed by Friday of next week, then we'll obviously figure out who needs some more support and making sure that they can log on and access the appropriate sites. The information on how to get online next week will be shared via the various social media outlets that we use, and those outlets are listed there. Again, if you're not following the PTA on Facebook, and remind, I can't urge you strongly enough to do so. They've been tremendous in helping us get information out. Ms. Agronsoni is getting stuff up on the website regularly and sending our own e-blasts. As you know, we've had some trouble updating, but the surefire way to make sure that you stay informed is through the PTA. And again, I want to thank Kim and Chris. They've been tremendous about helping us get information out to parents and getting me information as well. The first official day of school is September 21st, 2020. That is a Cohort A day. Okay, Cohort A will be in person that day. Cohorts B and C will learn remotely. And again, that information as far as where they log in and things like that should be clear by the end of next week. Remote schedules and sign-in deals will be shared with families prior to 9/21. I'm going to just change the share here. I'm going to share something else just so I can show you the calendar. This was put out by the PTA, and again, thank you for that. But I want to just make sure everyone's clear on what it's going to look like. Alex, that's up there, correct? Give me the one.
Yes.
Okay, so next week of the 21st, Group A will be in school. Group B will be in school on Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we resort back to the normal steady schedule, which is A, B, and C. Okay, the week of the 28th, there is no school because of the Jewish holiday. Group C will be in school on Tuesday, and then A, B, and C, Wednesday to Friday. When we resume in October, again, then we'll have C, A, and so on and so forth. This was shared by the PTA. If it's not up on the website, we'll make sure we get it up. And we will continue to put out these like 2 months in advance calendars just so parents are clear. So that's what the schedule will look like starting the 21st. We're starting on week 1. If your child is not in Cohort A, he or she should not come to school on the 21st. Okay, please make sure that you only send your child to school if they're in Cohort A. And if you're still unsure of which cohort your child is in, you can email Miss Agronsoni and she will get that information to you. Okay, back to the agenda. Let me just get rid of this. And school hours again, 8:30 to 2 o'clock every day. Students home will have similar hours. The schedules will maybe vary a little bit for students at home, but the instruction will take place between the hours of 8:30 and 2 on days students are either home as part of blended learning or they're at home for full remote learning. And we'll get those schedules out to students by the 21st. Now, what I've done with the frequently asked questions is obviously we're getting a lot of emails and a lot of questions from parents, which is perfectly fine and understandable. PTA has shared what they've been getting. The APs have been sharing with me, the office, Ms. Agronsoni, and then questions that I've been getting asked myself. And I've made a list of about 40. I feel strongly that I'm going to cover most of what you might be wondering. If you have a question that's specific to your child, this is not necessarily the forum for that. So if you could please email, again, your child's grade AP and CC Ms. Agronsoni, that would be the best way to go about that. But I'd ask that you please just avoid child-specific questions in this format. And when I'm done with the frequently asked questions, I will go ahead and go through the Q&A. Again, if I've answered the question, I'm just going to go ahead and move past it. If I don't get to your question, once again, I am going to try to have a time limit this morning. But if I don't get to your question, please feel free to email your grade AP or Ms. Agronsoni. So let's just jump right in. Who will be teaching blended and remote learning? As of right now, we do not have any staff outside of PSIS 49 assigned to our school. I will tell you that could change. We are short staffed, which I'll address in a minute, but we do need significant increase in staff to pull this off correctly, the way that the guidance mandates that we do. But as of right now, there are no non-PSIS 49 teachers teaching students teaching our students. That could change as of Monday. Okay, and there really at this point is no advantage. There's no, if your child's in blended, they're going to have teachers from 49, or if your child's in remote. It is somewhat random, quite honestly, and that depends a little bit on, actually it depends a lot on teacher accommodations to work from home and things like that. So I know many parents are concerned, and I'm proud to say that many of you really want your children taught by PSIS 49 staff. I think that's, first of all, fantastic. But there is, if you're trying to kind of guess and figure out if it's blended or remote, there's no real answer for that right now. We are short on both sides, and we could end up with more staff from outside the building teaching children in either model. Do we have enough staff? We do not have enough staff. I'm going to be very transparent. One thing I'm going to do throughout this meeting is I'm going to be very transparent with you. That I don't have all the answers that you're going to want right now, and I know how frustrating that is. It's equally as frustrating for me. We are short right now about 10 teachers just to open the doors on 9/21 on Monday, in order to make sure that there's a teacher in front of every child who's physically in the school, and that every child who's at home is getting contact and instruction from a teacher. We need about 10. In order to correctly and follow the guidance that the DOE has provided for us as to how we should be instructing students, we need about 40 teachers. And I know that's a tremendous number. With 10, we can make sure that every child has a teacher in front of them every day, whether they're in blended at home or full remote on some level. That 40 number comes from the fact that right now, because of our staffing shortages, we've completely maximized our resources. Every ICT teacher has become a regular classroom teacher, so that right now I don't have the ability to put 2 teachers in the classroom in ICT classes. Now the mandate is that I have to do that. I just don't have the staff to make that happen right now. All of our staffing issues have been shared with the district office and the superintendent, the executive superintendent, and central. I was actually on the phone with Bob Holden yesterday or Thursday, truth, I don't remember which one, and I explained it to him as well. Alicia had reached out to principals. Alicia from Bob Holden's office had reached out to principals about a week ago asking our shortages. I gave them to her, and Bob called me personally, which I very much appreciate because he's very concerned. And I was, very honest with him as well about our staffing situation. The reason for that is that right now principals are being tasked with covering the students that are physically in the building, the students that are at home as part of blended learning, and the students are engaged in full remote learning with the same number of staff that they currently have. And it's, quite frankly, it's just mathematically impossible. We have, again, maximized every staff member that we have. Ms. Demario, the dean, is back in the classroom. Ms. Shannon, our literacy coach, who's usually an out-of-classroom support person, she's back in the classroom. Every teacher's teaching schedule is full, and I just don't have the numbers. So I've been on several calls this past week with district staff, with staff from the borough office, with staff from Central, going over our numbers. You know, I think initially and I have colleagues, we're all in the same boat. Numbers vary from anywhere from 18 to I have a colleague that's short 75 teachers. You know, when they saw schools with larger numbers, you know, they reached out, I guess, to make sure what we're doing. I explained everything we're doing. And by the end of the call, they said, well, we see what you're saying. We understand that there does not appear that there's much else you could do to maximize your resources. And they are going to try to get us staff. I don't know if we'll get 40 more teachers to do this. I know that's probably a question that follows there. I just don't know. But this has been brought up at every level to everyone who needs to know. And quite frankly, I'm just awaiting guidance. There's no other way to put that. Is the program finalized? This relates to the staffing issue. The program is as close to finalized as it's been for the last 3 weeks. Just to give you an idea of what we've been through with this, we are on our 4th iteration of the program. Really, we've reprogrammed this. What that means is we've rescheduled and reprogrammed the school 4 times. It's finalized right now. That number could change. And why could that change? As you know, parents have the right to opt in to full remote learning at any time. And our full remote learning numbers, which are right now about 375, continue to increase really daily. So that throws things off as far as the number of students that are in the building on any given day or the number of students that are at home, leading me to have to adjust certain grades and things like that and who's teaching where. So I think the program will continue to be somewhat fluid. Additionally, teachers can put in for accommodations at any time. And that is an ongoing process. And as of right now, I do know there's a couple teachers still pending approval. So I anticipate that by next week, I could possibly have 2 more staff members that get accommodations to work from home. As of right now, we have 21 staff members with accommodations to work from home. The question's further down, but since I'm mentioning it, I cannot share any information about which staff members have accommodations to work from home. I've consulted legal on this. There are HIPAA guidelines. I do understand that once we're back in school, it's going to be abundantly clear who's in the building and who's not, particularly when these teachers are teaching from their homes. But as principal, I cannot share that information with families because it is protected by HIPAA. And even just because the teachers were working from home doesn't necessarily mean they have received an accommodation. So I can't answer those questions that are related to that. Class sizes. Let me switch my share here, just to give you an idea of how this is going to work as far as class sizes go. On days students are in the building, students are in person, they'll have 9 to 12 students in their classes. That number could, quite frankly, go down a little bit because, as I said before, families continue to opt for full remote learning. But for the most part, cohort numbers will be 9 to 12. The question's been asked, if it gets too low, could we switch to an A-B cohort? We can't do that. It's just not feasible. It wouldn't be consistent across the school, so the number of cohorts won't change. If you have opted into blended learning, the days your child is home, their group size could be twice the contractual limit. These are as per the DOE guidelines. These are not school rules. So what that means is that on a day a kindergarten student is home on a blend, if they're in blended learning, they could be in a group of up to 50 for their synchronous instruction. Similarly, in grades 1 to 5, that goes up to 64, and grades 6 to 8, that's 66. I have to maximize these numbers. So part of my phone call with the borough yesterday was, have you maxed out all of your blended numbers? So are you using the twice the contractual limit guidance? And I am. Now, just to be clear, on very few grades have we hit these numbers yet. Numbers are generally smaller, but your child could possibly be in a larger group setting when they're getting synchronous learning if they're in the blended model. If you've opted for full remote, your child's class size has to remain to contractual size limits. So that means if a kindergarten student is full remote, their class cannot exceed 25. Grades 1 to 5, it cannot exceed 32, and grades 6 to 8, it cannot exceed 33. So that's what the class size limits look like depending on the model that you have opted into. How will IEP mandates be met? We are going to do the absolute very best we can to meet all students' IEP mandates. Now, I know I just said that I don't have enough staff to service ICT students. What I can say is that ICT students will have contact with their special ed teacher in the course of their regular program, whether that's the days they're in the building or at home, but I do not have the staff to put 2 teachers in every classroom. Students in self-contained classes, they will still remain in a 12 to 1-to-1 setting where they're going to have a teacher, no more than 12 students, and a paraprofessional. Related services, there will be a mix. When it comes to related services, there will be a mix of in-person and virtual services. You should have received a survey asking what your preference is, and I believe what we have to do now is just make every effort to accommodate those preferences. I can't look at anyone and say at this point that we're going to be able to accommodate every parent preference, but we will do everything we can to make that happen. How will ENL students receive services? We are, again, that will probably be a combination of in-person and remote services for students who receive ENL. We will do everything we can to support these students the very best that we can. You can get an additional device for your child. Alex, that's on the website, correct?
Yes, it is.
Thanks, Alex. There's a link on the website to request an additional device for your child. Devices are limited, and as I've mentioned before, the responsibility for distributing devices has been shifted from central DOE to the schools. I would ask, if you need a device, please let us know. Do not hesitate to do so. If you're just requesting an extra device, you know, where it's for convenience and you could really get by with what you have, I would ask you to be a little judicious in making that decision. We have to try to maintain enough inventory in the building to service students who are physically in the building, and also the best we can to get parents devices who need them at home. At this time, we do not have internet enabled devices, and I don't really have the ability to provide those. I don't have an answer for that. That's something that's my boss, superintendent's aware of, that the central is aware of, that it's an issue. I don't have an answer for that right now if you don't have internet service. But if you don't, you can let Ms. Agronsoni know, and we will do whatever we can to try to help you work that out.
I'm sorry, Mr. Purdy, the device request form is in the remote learning info hub on the website.
Okay, so if you get on the DOE website, there's a device request form there if you just search it. If you're not sure how to do that, again, you can email Ms. Agronsoni and she can send you that link. We'll get that to you. Yes, your child does have to wear a mask at all times except when eating breakfast and lunch, both of which will be in the classroom. Will there be mask breaks? The guidance that we've received is that mask breaks, the best practice is to provide those when children are outside. So if they're outside as part of their normal instruction, but again, twice during the day, during breakfast and lunch, the children will be taking their masks off and eating for that period. And then those will be instructional periods where there'll be, obviously it won't be the same kind of interaction because masks are off, but it will be an instructional lunch as they're eating. What if I need to drop off my child early or pick up late? We do not have the capacity to accommodate either of these requests. I'm sorry for that. You know, I think normally we try to be very accommodating. We open the doors an hour early on normal circumstances, and generally, you know, we're happy to hang on to students, you know, after school for a little bit as we can. This year, the doors for the school will not open until 8:25, and that includes the gate in the back of the school. The reason I have to be so strict with this is if I leave that gate open, the schoolyard's going to fill up with children who are not supervised, who may not be maintaining social distance, who may not be wearing masks, and it's just a safety issue. I don't have staff to do that. So you're going to have to, either if your child's old enough to walk to school on their own, you're going to really have to instruct them that it's extremely important that they maintain social distancing while waiting in the school perimeter. They act in a responsible manner as far as mask wearing and things like that goes. And if your child is too young to walk to school on their own, I have to ask parents or whoever's getting that child to school to make sure that you stay with them until we can open the gates and let the children in. Similarly, at dismissal, we're going to have to ask parents to make sure that you do pick up promptly at 2 p.m. If there is, you know, I do understand there's going to be times here and there where someone runs late, okay, 5 or 10 minutes late. We don't really have the capacity to monitor students for the 20 and 30 minutes, you know, that has happened maybe in the past. If it becomes a persistent problem, we may have to sit down and discuss opting your child into full remote learning. Again, it's just a matter of resources. I don't like these policies. I think those of you that have been with us for a while, I hope you understand this is not the way we usually run things, but I just don't have resources to accommodate these kind of things now. Can I pick up my child early from school on an in-person day? You can do so. I would really strongly recommend against it. If your child's attending blended learning, they're going to be in school either 1 or 2 days a week. If you want them to get that in-school experience, I would make every effort to schedule your doctor's appointments or things of that nature on a day where they're in remote learning or outside of school hours. So I would really ask, particularly this year, that parents really try to avoid pulling their children early from school. If you do need to do so, you have every right to. Please know that when you do, I mentioned before, it won't be like you used to where you came in, went to the office and we signed them out. You'll wait at the security desk, security will call the main office and we'll have the child escorted down. We will not, excuse me, we will not be able to, and sometimes parents will call and say, I'm on my way, could you have my child brought down? I'm in a hurry. We can't accommodate that this year. We just cannot have extra bodies in the main office. It's a very strict capacity in the main office as far as social distancing goes, and you've been in the office, you know how tight it is. So we will not have the ability to have a student waiting in the office, for 5 or 10 minutes while a parent is on the way. So please understand that and plan accordingly. What will the program look like for children who are in school and at home? I'm going to go ahead and share. Is this the one? I think that might be it. Let's see something. I thought there was a different. Let's put this one. I'm sorry. Yes. Okay, again on, sorry, this is a screenshot, so it doesn't do great. Okay, on an in-person day, your child will be engaged in a 7-period day, 7 instructional periods. Okay, the times are a little bit different. They're going to be 45-minute periods. We took away 2 minutes from each period and then 3 from the last. We made first period, we have like an entry from 8:30 to 8:40 is going to be dedicated to entry. That gives students a chance to get in the building, get settled. We might even be able to get the breakfast knocked out in that 10-minute period. And then the instructional periods will be 45 minutes. And at the end of the day, the last period is going to end about 1:55, just to allow time for dismissal, both, which is going to have to be staggered. So they'll have 6 instructional periods throughout the day. And this is roughly what the schedule will look like. The one thing that won't change is the 8:30 start time and the 2 o'clock dismissal time. In between, it's just like I said, it goes to about 45-minute classes. Will children receive all required subjects? Yes, but that will vary a little bit. There will be some subjects that children will only receive on their remote days, and some that is really entirely dependent on staffing. So on some grades, for example, in a middle school, I may have a teacher of a certain content area that has an accommodation to work from home. So that means students in a grade might receive math or science only on days when they're home. And then, those are just examples that is not quite finalized. So there are circumstances where certain grades, students are in the building, they may not have math in person. That may just be done entirely remotely. The guidance does allow us to do that. And quite frankly, in some circumstances, I just don't have a choice. There's no other way to do it. If I have a teacher that's on accommodation, I cannot then hire a second teacher of the same subject area to come in and teach the students who are there in person. I don't have the budget for that. In the event that I do have extra funds, those have got to be dedicated to places where I just don't have somebody. So your children will receive all of the required major subjects. They may not receive them all in person. Some may be done entirely remotely. I do not have enough staff right now to offer arts to all the students. And that's, again, all of these staffing needs have been shared. And I'm just waiting guidance on how to address that. So I can't promise that everyone, for example, in elementary school, we try to spread them out as much as possible so students get theater, dance, music, art. That's not going to be possible this year. Some students, when they're in person, some students will have gym in their program. Some students might have art in their program. Some students might have music in their program, but not all students will be able to receive all of those things just due to staffing issues. And students at home right now, I don't have the ability or staff to offer arts and gym and things like that to students that are home, but that again has been escalated, and I'm hoping to get relief from outside the school, from central DOE. Does the building have enough cleaning supplies and PPE? I'm very comfortable with the amount of cleaning supplies that we have. We have 5,000 to 10,000 masks on hand right now. It's most convenient if students bring their own masks, but if they forget, we have them. And if that's a hardship for you, that's okay too. We'll provide masks as students come in the building. Hand sanitizer, sanitation wipes have been issued to all teachers. Hand sanitizer stations will be mounted on the wall. In the event of a positive or a suspected child that's symptomatic, we have the appropriate PPE for staff members who will escort that child to the isolation room. So I am very comfortable with the amount of supplies that we have right now. And we have been assured that as principals, that if we need things, we just call a hotline number and things will be delivered very quickly. Is the building properly ventilated? We received our ventilation report as of August 20th, about a week ago. Joe, the custodial engineer, is going over that report right now. There are a couple rooms where there were questions about the dampers and whether or not airflow is coming in, but we've been assured those will all be addressed by September 21st. If a room has not been addressed by September 21st, it will be taken offline. Students will not be put in that room. For the most part, though, our building is in very good shape. And again, any concerns are being addressed pretty much as we speak. How will the building be cleaned each night? Well, throughout the day, custodians will be walking around, wiping down what they call high touch surfaces, door handles, doorknobs, maybe handrails on the stairs, things like that. Teachers, again, will be continued to be issued not Clorox wipes, but wipes like Clorox wipes to wipe things down throughout the day. And then every night, the custodians are using those misters that you may have seen on the news. It's like a backpack device where they mist every single classroom. The solution dries, and then the room has been sanitized, and that will happen nightly. How will bathrooms be kept clean? Custodians will have a schedule to increase bathroom cleanings. We will have staff members stationed outside of bathrooms so that we can limit the number of students that go in at a time. The goal is to keep it to one student at a time, barring a bathroom emergency. And we're going to limit the number of bathrooms that are open. So students will be directed that there's going to be 2 bathrooms in the new wing, 2 bathrooms available for students in the middle wing, and 2 bathrooms for students available for students in the old wings. So that will help the custodians be able to clean them more frequently. Having a staff member outside will help reduce the number of students in and out of there. And I feel confident in our ability to keep the bathrooms clean. A couple parents have asked, will they be cleaned after every use? Realistically, no, we don't have the capacity to be in cleaning a bathroom after every time a child uses it. But with mask wearing and hand washing and then increased cleaning, I'm comfortable with where the bathrooms, the cleaning schedule. Can parents visit the building? As of right now, there are to be no parents visiting the building. Again, I don't like saying this. I think you do. I hope you know that, part of something I enjoy very much, part of my job is having parents in and out of the building, stopping in, saying hello, chatting with people. But we are limiting visitors to the building, and until further notice, parents cannot visit the building. Again, if you need to pick up a child, you'll wait by the security desk. Related to that, which I don't have in the frequently asked questions, but I've said I just want to be clear, things like birthday parties and those celebrations and things that we would normally do that are such a big part of what we do, we're just not going to be able to accommodate those this year. So I do apologize for that, but we are strictly limiting visits to the building. Can my child come to school? Can my child come to school if I wrote these questions? Can my child come to school if he or she is sick? No. Please, parents, make sure that if your child wakes up feeling sick, that you keep them home that day. There is a health protocol checklist that I've referenced in a couple other meetings that needs to be filled out by every staff member, everybody that visits the building. The guidance is still a little bit unclear on how that's going to work for children, to be very honest with you. If absent guidance by the time we open, what we will do is make that form available on the website so that children can bring in a hard copy. If parents can't print it out, we'll send home hard copies for them. But as principals, we are awaiting a little bit more clarity on exactly how those health forms are going to be filled out for students. I can tell you that this week staff's been in, and all of us, including myself, have been completing that form either as a hard copy when they walk in or doing it on their phone and showing the clearance as you enter the building. We have yet to have somebody that was not cleared to enter, which is good news. If my child is sick on an in-person day, can he come to school on another day? No, that's number one. If you're an A, if your child's in cohort A and he or she wakes up feeling sick and misses that day, we can't just switch, put him in on cohort C. We cannot mix cohorts. That's the guidance that we have. A related question to that I think might be later on, but a question related to that is, well, if he's sick or he or she is sick for a day, can they then jump on to remote learning? We don't have the capacity to do that. And part of the reason is the class size numbers that I just showed you. To some extent, on some grades, the students that are in full remote will be certainly mirroring what's going on in the class, and it'll be close. But like any other classes, even when we're in the building, there's a little bit of pacing sometimes might be a little bit quicker in one class or a little bit in the other, and it ends up evening out by the end of the year. So we don't have the capacity. If your child's just sick, a one-off, they wake up not feeling well, that's just a sick day. Now, if a child is going to be sick for an extended period of time or going to miss an extended portion of school, what we'll do is probably advise you to let's get them into full remote learning, because as you know, you can opt into full remote learning anytime, and then we'll make that adjustment for them. But we just don't have the capacity to say, oh, my child's sick on Tuesday, they're supposed to be in school. That's right, we'll pop them into this classroom. Unfortunately, it's just not the way the system is set up. What happens if there's a positive case reported in the school? If there is a positive case reported, the Department of Health will contact us as soon as they get that case and advise us on parental and family notification. If there's, in this link here on the DOE's website, all this information is there. If you click this link, I've mentioned this before, it tells you kind of the threshold for how they would handle that. If there's a positive case in a classroom, one positive case, those students would shut down and quarantine for 14 days. If there's one or two, actually, if there's more than one case in a school in different classes, that could shut the entire school down for 2 weeks. And there is the possibility, there's some gray area in there where other circumstances, in a community, if they saw rolling, numbers increase, and that potentially could shut things down as well. If a child is symptomatic, if a child partway through the day, teacher notices a child's, feverish looking, flushed and sweating, something along those lines, then what the protocol is, the teacher will contact the main office. A member of the building response team will go to has to don personal protective equipment and escort the child to an isolation room, which our school's isolation room is room 184. That's the last room on the first floor new wing. And so then the nurse will come to that room, assess the child, and make a determination on what the next steps are. Most likely that's going to be calling the parent saying, listen, we need you to come pick up your child, and we strongly recommend that the child is tested for COVID. The isolation room is then sanitized. The area where the child was is then sanitized. But just because a child's symptomatic does not mean that the classroom is shut down or the kids don't come to school the next day. The only thing at this point which leads children not to come to school is a positive case. If we found out the next day the child tested positive, then that would warrant a quarantine. I do recognize that a child who's symptomatic might get tested that day. That might be a couple of days before they get the test results back. Unfortunately, I don't have a good answer for that. My advice would be, if you're really uncomfortable with that protocol, you might want to seriously consider full remote learning, because that is the protocol that we are to follow. Testing, well, I don't have it in the frequently asked questions, but I'll just put it out there now. I should have had the testing question. I know you probably see in the news that there's going to be random testing of students starting October 1st. I'm not sure of the logistics, but there's a couple things that the information I have on that is as follows. Number one, yes, beginning October 1st, the DOE, I guess through the Department of Health, will be randomly testing students inside schools throughout I think it's 10 to 15% a month of students, if I'm not mistaken. My understanding right now is that is mandatory. A parent who does not give permission for their child to receive random testing their child would have to opt for full remote instruction. More information, I think, is forthcoming on the logistics of that, but that is the policy right now. So if you're a family who's not comfortable with your child receiving a COVID test in school, and you refuse that test, or you refuse to give permission for that test, and my thinking is, and this is not clear, but we'd have to get that permission ahead of time. So I'm assuming there'll be some kind of form going home to parents prior to October 1st stating, yes, my child can be randomly tested, or no, she can't. If you answer no to that question, the way it stands right now is that your child would then have to engage in full remote learning. What happens if my child goes to school on the wrong day? Excuse me. I hope you all have your coffee. Sorry, the format doesn't allow for us to provide coffee and bagels. If your child comes to school on the wrong day, he or she will be in a room with a staff member. We're not going to, we won't put them alone, and we're certainly not going to make them feel uncomfortable or anything like that. Someone will remain with them, but you will receive a call saying that you need to come pick up your child. Let's face it, there might be realistic circumstance where a parent says, listen, I made a mistake. I'm at work. I can't leave. And we'll deal with that on our end. If it's something that became a pattern, we would have to sit down with the family and say, listen, this has happened several times, and we've got to now put your child in full remote learning. So please, just again, mistakes are going to be made. I understand that. And we will be patient, and we will, under no circumstances will the child be made to feel any way uncomfortable because the mistake was made at any time. But I just ask that you please familiarize yourself with your children's schedule. Older students, middle school students, 5th grade, even 4th grade students and up, I think, are more than able to learn their schedule and understand what the days are. So if you have middle school students, I think you need to certainly know their schedule, to put that responsibility on them as well. But parents, I just ask that you know that. And again, unfortunately, we just can't accommodate. If a child shows up, we can't just put them in a classroom. That's crossing cohorts, which defeats the whole purpose of this blended learning model. How will attendance be taken? We're still waiting some guidance on that. It will be taken every day whether the child's in the building or at home, and interactions that would qualify as attendance would be the child, checking in the morning. It will most likely, for students who are at home, be similar to what we did from March to June, where teachers would, have a morning check-in. Are you here? Some teachers, had questions. What's your favorite snack? What's your favorite sports team? Whatever the case may be, and students answered to indicate that they were logged on and there. And then throughout the day, teachers will make note of which students participate in their classes and which ones don't, for synchronous instruction. So the exact system is not there, but it'll be very similar to what we used in March, from March to June. Can I change my child's learning preference? Yes, you can. That is, the link for that is there. It's on our school website under the news section. You got to go down a couple, you'll find it. It's also on the DOE's website. Oh, but I'm sorry, let me just backtrack a bit. You can change your child's learning preference to full remote learning. You will not be able to opt back into blended learning until November is the next time when you can do that. And I don't know the specific date yet, but I will get that as soon as we have that information. It'll be out. I believe it's the first week in November is when that window will open up. Parents will have the opportunity to opt their child into blended learning if they'd like to. And then I think the first date the child returns might be November 16th, but I'll share that information as soon as we have it. And I haven't seen that personally on the website, the DOE's website. I could have missed it though. There's a tremendous amount of information being shared right now, and I'm sometimes struggling to keep up, to be very honest with everyone. Sorry, that's a repeat of the question. I'll delete that one. Could we end up switching to full remote instruction, and what will that look like? Several parents have asked me this. I think several parents have asked me point blank, are we going to open on the 21st? That's the plan right now. At any time, we could, as a system, switch to full remote instruction. I'm sure you've seen on the news that the current guidelines are if the infection rate citywide exceeds 3%, then the schools will shut down and shift to full remote instruction. There are also some, as I mentioned earlier, there's some gray area there where if there are, I think, rolling spikes in different parts of the city that I guess the city officials are not comfortable with, that could also lead us to go full remote. If one parent asked me, actually a couple parents have asked me, because I've had some discussions about staffing on the side, how can we open on September 21st, given the severe staffing shortages citywide? And that's a good question. And I think that there is the potential that staffing shortages could possibly lead to further delay. I've been very clear, as I said before, with Ms. Chan, and the superintendent's been tremendously supportive. She understands the issues. She understands our shortages. She brings all of our concerns directly right up the chain. But the other thing is that staffing issue could possibly bump us back, potentially. But the plan right now, September 21st, we begin blended learning. What will it look like? It will look different than it did last year, in that the schedules will be more of a traditional school day schedule. So if we switch to full remote, there will be more of your child has, math at this time, ELA at this time, social at this time, and there'll be different levels of synchronous instruction. It'll be a mix of, synchronous instruction, and students will be on their own to engage in work, and then they might have a period later in the day, periods later in the day where there's more synchronous instruction, either in a different subject or a follow-up to the previous subject. But the schedules will be more structured and more reflect more of a normal school day than we did from March to June. Sorry. How can I arrange for childcare? This is a link to the Learning Bridges program. If you need childcare, the school has no role in this, and we do not have the ability to provide childcare. But if you click this link, the information on what the DOE, the city, is calling the Learning Bridges program, which is, my understanding is it's free childcare. You can, initially, I believe it was just an interest survey. I was told the other day that it actually now is, they're actually asking you a little bit more information, but you can get on there, submit whatever information you have, and then that'll get you on a list. I don't know if that's a guarantee that there's childcare. I know that childcare is a huge issue. I know that not being able to have your child come in the building till 8:25 and then having to pick the child up at 2 o'clock is a huge issue and a huge inconvenience. I don't have an answer for that, and I'm sorry for that. But childcare is something parents are going to have to do everything they can to work out on their own. I wish I had a better answer. We still have no information on the high school process. Please try not to stress that. I'm really literally taking things right now, a couple weeks at a time. My next goal right now is just to make sure that we can open up on September 21st. Once that's done, then I have to start thinking, okay, we have to get to November when I see how our in-person and full remote numbers are going to change. The high school process will work itself out. Every 8th grader in New York City is in the exact same situation. Every public high school is aware of that. Every private high school is aware of that. I've said it kind of repeatedly that I think we all have to worry about the things that we can control right now. And we can't control a lot of things, which makes it tough, but we have absolutely no control over the high school process. So tell if you have an 8th grade child, they should come in every day, whether it's in person or remotely, do their absolute very best. And when we get information on how we're going to go through the process, we'll do everything we can to support families, make sure that we put your child in the best position possible. How do I get my PEBT? If you're not aware what this is, every New York City child is entitled to, I think it's $421 for food services that they did not receive when they were in the building from March to June. It is called a pandemic EBT card, and it comes as a debit card. If you already receive support for food from the city, that was automatically placed on your current in your account. If you do not, it should have been mailed to you, and there's a very a significant delay in getting these cards out to families. They were supposed to be out by, I believe, June 21st, and many families have yet to receive them. There's a link to the website on our website, 49 Online, with the information. And there's also the email and phone number that you can call to get your card sent to you. This is another issue that it's not, everyone who should be aware is aware. It was discussed at length at the CEC meeting several weeks ago. Representative Kathy Nolan's aware of it. I know Councilman Holden's office is aware of it. So if you have trouble with this phone number and this email address is what you're supposed to contact. My understanding is that I believe Councilman Holden's office reached out to the state about it and was told that principals handle this. That's just not correct right now. I have no guidance on how to handle this other than giving you these phone numbers and this contact information. So Ms. Agrensoni can help you with the process, but I don't have the ability to issue you a PEBT card. That's got to come from the state. So please contact these numbers. If you're struggling and you feel like you're getting the runaround or your issues are not being addressed, you can let us know. But I also would strongly urge you to contact your local electeds, Senator Dabo, Councilman Holden, and let them know, listen, I'm trying to get this card and I just can't seem to make it happen. If I find out that the school has a greater role in the process or a better ability to help families do that, get the card, we'll do that. We just, as of right now, we have not received any information on that. These questions are a little bit random, and I apologize. I maybe should have categorized them, but I just kept a list as they came in. So I know jumping from EBT to honors class is a bit strange, but how will honors classes work? Right now, the way the 8th grade program is set up, we will be able to get the students in 802, provide them the opportunity to sit for the Regents. If the Regents is given, we will be able to do that. So we were fortunate there. 7th grade, 702 has maintained its class integrity. We will do everything we can to accelerate the program. They will remain an honors class in 8th grade. To be very transparent, in 8th grade, we might have to do a little catch up to try to get them ready for the Regents, but 702 and 802 right now have maintained class integrity, and it is our intention to make sure that 802 takes their Regents, and 702 will accelerate the curriculum as much as possible so that they're prepared for 8th grade. And if we have to, to do some supports, some supplementary stuff next year, as long as we have the ability to do so, we will. But there is no plan right now to not give the Regents or to break up an honors class in 7th and 8th grade. There's the questions down the road, down a little further down, but I might as well mention it. I don't have any information on whether or not state tests or Regents will even be given this year. I know several parents have asked. As of right now, everything is on. As you may be aware, last year students received Regents credit for just being in the class. They canceled the exams. I don't know if they'll do that again this year, but we are moving forward as though the exams will take place. I have no updates on busing. I know we're a week away from school starting. We, as principals, we have obviously shared this concern with the superintendent who understands it. We just don't know. Last I saw in the news that the DOE did reach contracts with their bus companies within the last week or so. My assumption is right now they're working on getting routes together. Parents have asked me point blank, with 3 different cohorts going to school every day, how are the bus companies going to get these routes right? And that's a question I was just asked the other day. I can't speak for the bus companies. I just know that as we get information on busing, we will share it with families as soon as we can. Can I change my child's cohort? We cannot accommodate cohort changes. It just, like I said, this programming and it's been an extremely fluid situation with multiple changes. And I would describe it as trying to set up a program that works and cohorts that work. We're trying to hit a moving target. The only problem is with this target, we've hit it about 4 times and it just keeps moving. So, we really can't accommodate cohort changes. So I am sorry for that. Having said that, I think everyone has to be aware that if the numbers of, say, full remote students increase significantly between now and the 21st, or even after the 21st, there is a chance that as a school, we may have to change children's cohorts. That might not sound fair, but we have to do things that are going to make the school run. My job is to get the school operational, and that might mean some shifting. As of right now, that's not on the table, but I just want to be transparent that, if we have a significant uptick in full remote learning, that could possibly affect cohort assignments. That would not be our plan A. It would not be our go-to. We do everything we can to avoid it, but the possibility is there. Similarly, when we get back in November, when people have the opportunity to opt back in November, there is a chance cohort assignments could be impacted. Right now on some grades, cohorts are at the limit of the number of people allowed in a classroom at any one given time. So that would not be our go-to. It would not be our plan A, but there might be circumstances where we have to make things work, and I'm gonna have to have some difficult conversation with parents. I don't relish that. That's not what I want to do. And it's not the plan as I head into it, but there is that potential. How will students be graded? As of right now, we've received no information that we will, the grading policy will be as it was last year from March to June. Our intention is to move forward with our traditional grading policy. It's going to take some tweaking, just given the pacing and things like that, but students will be graded as they would normally do. So what I would say is similar to what I said to the 8th grade. We'll figure out exactly how we're gonna apply our grading policy to the current circumstances, but if your child comes in every day and does the very best they can, the grades will take care of themselves, okay? I don't have any indication at this time, and I haven't heard any talk of the fact that that we would get guidance from Central saying that we're gonna continue like with a pass-fail kind of thing or something like that. I don't believe that's in the cards. So right now our intention is to move ahead with our normal grading policy. Again, it's gonna have to be slightly adapted for current circumstances, but that's the best information I have right there. I just mentioned the state test and Regents, I'm not sure. I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh about this one, but should I put my child in blended or full remote? I've had many parents email or call and say, excuse me, glasses are bad. Sorry about that. And ask me what my opinion was. It's a very personal decision, okay? Parents have to make the decision that they think is best for their children, okay? Some children, really struggle being at home 5 days a week and working on the computer, and parents think, they've got to get a couple days break. I did have a parent ask me point blank, which model is going to offer the most consistency. intuitively, if your child knows their schedule every day, which full remote, it's the same thing every day, which is full, what full remote is, I think it stands to reason that you're going to have the most consistency in full remote. I have more flexibility to serve full remote students because teachers who are working from the building can teach both students in the building and students who are at home. So on some levels, there might even be more staffing consistency for students who are in full remote. I have had parents forward me emails from other public schools strongly encouraging families to go into full remote learning. We're not necessarily taking a position. The more students we have in one model or the other, the more easier it is to program. But full transparency, I do believe that the way the schedule is working out, that it appears there will be more consistency with students who are in full remote instruction, simply because they'll be following a similar schedule every day. So it's a personal decision, but right now we seem to have the ability to serve full remote students a little bit more consistently, and some of that depends on the grades. Some grade bands work out better than others. Parent might email me and say, my child's in 5th grade, what do you think? I can't answer that right now, because to be very honest with you, this week we could get up with 50 to 100 more families deciding for full remote, and that would change the dynamics on any grade level. I could find out that I have another teacher or a couple more teachers go on, get medical accommodations in the next week and thereafter, and that'll change the dynamics and potentially the scheduling a bit. But the way it stands right now, I seem to be able to get more consistency for students who are in full remote instruction than in the blended instruction, simply because on grades where there's teachers who have accommodations, I'm struggling to cover their classes, and some of that may be covered with substitute teachers. What platform will be used for remote learning? We will use Google Classroom and Zoom for our synchronous instruction. So it'll be a combination of both. And again, teachers will begin to get that information out to families this week. And we hope that by Friday, everyone's clear on exactly what they need to do to log in and sign in. Related to that, but not on the question, not on here, I'm sorry, is which email address will we use? Every student right now should have a Department of Education email address and a PSIS 49 Gmail account. We are going to, at this point, we've received actually new guidance and some clarity on how this is going to work. We're going to end up choosing one or the other. We'll make that very clear to everyone by Wednesday which one we're going to go with, and we'll help you get that set up if you're still struggling with that. If you don't know your child's Gmail, if you don't know both your child's DOE email and your child's PSIS 49 Gmail account, please email Miss Agridsoni. Okay, please let her know that, and she can put you in the right direction. Who will my child's teacher be? Very good question, a very fair question. On some grades, I'm still not sure. And again, that's because of the kind of fluid nature of which teachers are getting accommodations. What happens is, as I find out that there's another teacher getting accommodations, that has really a domino effect where I then have to move staff around from different grades. And these changes, there's a chance that these changes could be happening right up to the 21st and potentially after. And again, this is another one of those answers that I know is bad. And I don't like sharing it with people. And these are concerns that have been escalated to everyone, right up the chain. But you'll get a very solid idea of who your child's teacher will be this week. Everything continues to be a bit fluid though. I mentioned this already. Can you tell us which staff have received accommodation to work from home? I cannot have any discussions about, staff working from home, even once we get started. I know it's silly because, you understand that you recognize that so-and-so is not in the building, but even once we get started, I cannot discuss, it'll just be, yes, they're working from home. And that, that's all I can really say. So I know that there's a level of frustration there for parents, and I understand that, but I just can't get into that. Can students get hard copy materials to use while at home? I mentioned last week, or excuse me, the previous meeting, we are looking to figure out exactly what we have in the building and what we can get sent home as far as hard copy materials. Anything that we can get home, we will. We're still sort of figuring out what we need in the classroom and what we need at home, but we're going to do everything we can to get as much stuff at home, if possible, that we can. How can I get my child's medicine to the nurse? If you have a child that needs medicine, who needs to have medicine administered by the nurse or in school, Nurse Cindy is going to, first of all, I want to thank Nurse Cindy. I don't think I've done this on any of the webinars, and I really should have. I don't know if you're aware or not, Nurse Cindy, from March to June, she was assigned to the rec center at 128 and worked with, parents, children of first responders who were there every day, and just really did a tremendous job there. That 128 rec center ran very, very well. Thanks to Nurse Cindy and actually Miss Snell, who volunteered to go down there and work during that as well. So I should say thank you to both of them. But she's also been very cooperative and very supportive of the school as we've been back this week. And I'm fortunate just to have a really good school nurse, and her and Miss Danielle do a great job in the medical room, and they'll continue to support us. She's going to set up a day next week where parents can come by and drop off medicine. They won't come in the building. She'll set up by one of the entrances. We're not sure which one yet. We'll get that figured out. But we'll get that up on the website, or we'll e-blast it out to PTA and things like that. So please continue to monitor those social media sites for that if you have a child that has medication. If you have questions, you can call the main office and they'll put you right through to Nurse Cindy. She was very clear. We spoke a couple times this week, but she was very clear. Please let parents know, call the school, and I'll speak to them next week if they have a question about how we're going to get the medicine done. But that information will be out shortly. How will entry and dismissal work? All right, I have that here. We'll get this out soon. We're actually just, where is this? There it is. Okay. I mentioned this before, but now it's in writing. It's a little easy, might be a little easier to understand. Kindergarten students will come in through the Penelope doors in the morning. That's different. If your child's in kindergarten, you will not come in through the schoolyard. You'll enter through Penelope. The teachers will be there to meet them. With the small number of students coming in, about 9 per class, we feel very comfortable that we can keep everybody distance, get the kids lined up, and bring them in the building there. Grades 1 through 4, and then classes 311 and 511 will come into the schoolyard, and the teachers will line them up and take them up. 5th grade students will enter through the door that they exited last year. So door number 1 on 80th Street. If you're on 80th looking at the building, there's the main entrance, and then to the left, about maybe 2/3 of the way down the block is door number 1. 5th grade students will go in there. 6th and 7th will come in through the Juniper Boulevard entrance where they normally exit the building, and 8th grade, 711 and 811 will come in the front of the building. And then for dismissal, pretty much the same thing. The only difference is, quite honestly, is that 4th grade is going to be dismissed through exit 1 with 5th grade. Okay, so 4th grade students will come out through the exit that they did last year. So I know they weren't in 4th grade last year, but so that'll be exit 1 again. That's the only change for dismissal. So again, if you're looking at the building, there's the main entrance, and then about 2/3 of the way down the block is exit 1. That's where 4th and 5th grade students will come out. And this will be shared with families, but this just should give you some idea of how we're going to do dismissal each day. Let's get rid of that. Oh, that's how you do that. Good time to figure that out. Well, how will temperatures be taken? Still waiting guidance on this. Like I said, the guidance that we have right now is that random temperature checks will be done. The school staff are to do random temperature checks on entry. I don't exactly know how we're defining random, whether it's up to us. So I put somebody at, a couple of doors and they just sort of randomly select students. They'll be using the laser thermometers or whatever they are, the forehead thermometers. I don't know if there's more of a structured system to it, or if we're literally just kind of selecting students as they come in and take their temperatures. Any visitors, and again, I know so they're going to be very limited, but there will be obviously some people that do have to come inside the building from time to time, a parent picking up by the main lobby. They will have their forehead scanned as well by school safety. Will there be after school programs or Saturday school? As of right now, there will be no school sponsored after school programs. And I mentioned this before, I just want to be clear, things, and it kills me to say this, things like the sports teams, the play, the clubs, we don't have the funds. Really, it's funding. We just don't have the funding to run those things right now. Could that change? Potentially. But at this time, there's just no way that's going to be even remotely possible. There will be no Saturday school until further notice. Again, it's just driven by budget. If that changes, we'll obviously let everyone know. Maspeth Town Hall will begin operating. It will not be the first week of school. I don't have the most recent guidance I have is that they're supposed to begin operating, I believe I think September 30th was the date I heard, or October 1st. That's not school decision that's decided at the city level between the Department of Youth and Community Development and the DOE. If that changes, we'll let you know. But as of right now, Maspeth is not able to start on the first week of school. Will there be outdoor learning? We're not going to have outdoor learning, like you see it on the news. Some schools are setting up tents and closing streets and putting classrooms outside. We don't have the capacity to do that, but we will, as long as I deem it safe to do so. We'll continue to use Juniper Park as we have in the past. We will use the schoolyard when appropriate. Teachers will have the opportunity, within reason, to take their classes outside and engage in instruction outside. But it's not like your child's, fourth and fifth period classes will be outside every day. That's not the way we're going to operate. Can my child walk home? Generally, actually, middle school students, just so everyone's clear, students in grades 6 through 8 are just released every day. They are dismissed from the building and they leave. They walk home alone. Okay, that's age appropriate. So that's something parents need to be aware of. If your child is a middle school student and they're in the building at dismissal, they are going to be released. They're not waiting with their teacher for a parent to pick them up. Fourth and fifth grade students can walk home with a note. Now, as you know, in the past, we have a permission slip. We're going to get that permission slip up on the website and e-blast it out. If you want your child to walk home, it's extremely important that you get that slip signed and indicate that yes, they can walk home alone. Otherwise, we can't release them at fourth and fifth grade, okay, without really jumping through some hoops. So please, we're going to make that available next week. So the best thing that we really need to ask of you is on whatever day your child's first day in school is, make sure they walk in carrying that permission slip. Now, this is obviously only for children who are coming to the building every day. Similarly, we're going to get the Juniper Park permission slip up on the website very soon. We cannot take classes over to Juniper Park unless every student in the class has the permission slip signed. It says, yes, my child can go to Juniper Park during the school day. So please, make every effort to get that printed out and brought back in day one, because we would like to, again, as long as it's safe to do so, take advantage of Juniper as we have in the past, particularly for PE classes. I do think that's the safest way to conduct PE classes as well. Several parents, along the way have just continued to ask what you can do to help. And I want that's extremely appreciated. I know it's sincere. The biggest, as I've said before, the most important things I need from parents are patience, flexibility, understanding. These policies that I'm describing, they're DOE policies, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that we implement them correctly. But much of what I'm trying to put in place is out of my control. So I just hope that you do understand that. The other thing is something I mentioned before. I think as the adults, we have to really do everything we can to stay positive, put on that brave face, and regardless of where our students are, whether it's full remote, blended, at home, in person, whatever, do everything we can to help them feel like, yes, this is the way it's supposed to be for now. Okay, I don't think this is long-term. I think I have great confidence that we'll get through this and things will be back to normal at some point. But I think we just have to, kind of exude that positivity to the children so that they have the confidence. And then the other thing, as I had mentioned, emailing like grade APs and Miss Agronsoni. If you could use those communication channels, it really it helps a lot. I think you all know you're more than welcome to email me. You can contact me. I'll get back to you. What I'm finding is I really am kind of inundated with emails and from parents, the district office, the borough, central. There's a tremendous amount of electronic communication. And some of you have probably noticed, and I apologize for this, that I'm going back through emails. I'll find things that I haven't responded to for 4 and 5 days. And I feel very bad about that. It's just the volume. Sometimes things even come in overnight and I wake up, I don't even get all the way through my inbox. So if you could use those communication protocols, if you email me and I don't respond, in a few days, shoot that email back to Ms. Agronsoni and maybe CC me, say, I think Mr. Carter may have missed this. Can you help me out here? I did get one more that came to me. Kindergarten orientation is going to take place on that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, that are set aside for regular orientation. So kindergarten teachers will meet with families and students during those time periods to kind of orient you to how things are going to run moving forward. Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing the screen, and I'm going to go through the Q&A. Kim, Alex, is there anything that I missed, or should I just get through the Q&A and go there?
Mr. Carty, I think there was some confusion regarding the teacher to student ratio in remote learning. So if you could just go back to that.
Okay, on days your child is in school, they will be in a group of somewhere between 9 and 12 students. Okay, and most groups are around 9. That's the days they're physically in the building. If your child is in blended learning, which means that they're in one of the cohorts and they're going to be in school 1 or 2 days a week, and they're going to be home on the other days per week, their synchronous instruction can be in groups of up to 50 students in kindergarten, 64 students in grades 1 to 5, and 66 students in grades 1 to 8. So that if your child, for example, let's just say is in class 501 cohort A, on their in-person day, that child will have 9 to 12 students in their group. The days they're home, they might be receiving instruction from a teacher in a group online, in a group of up to 64 other students, okay? We are able to double the class size for the blended learning students on days they're home. And not only able to, we are directed to, because we have to maximize our resources in order to meet our teaching shortfall. Okay, I don't want to, I know this is a big number for parents, and I said earlier, I don't want to get into opinions about it. It's just the reality of the situation. Okay, so on a day that your child is at home, you know, if they're in cohort A and it's a B day, when they're at home, the synchronous instruction that they engage in could be in a group this large. Right now, none of our groups are this large. Okay, it's just not the case, but it could happen. Okay, and so that's what that means. Now, if your child is full remote, they're not coming into the school at all, they will always be in a group that is no larger than the normal class size for their grade level. So in K, that's 25 students. Sorry, I should have put this there earlier. In grades 1 to 5, that is, 32 students. And in grades 6 to 8, that is 33 students. Okay, so if you opted into full remote learning, your child's groupings, I'm pointing to my screen, your child's groupings will be this big on the days they're home. If you opted into blended learning, your child's groupings could be, many are not, most are not right now, but could be this large on days they're home. Now, that doesn't mean, again, that every group is going to be this large. There's different guidance on how much synchronous instruction should take place depending on grade level and the time of year. So it increases, you know, from say in grades K to 2, it increases from about, I want to say it's about 45 minutes a day at the beginning of the year, up to about 110 minutes a day by the winter. In middle schools, it goes, I believe it starts about 90 minutes a day up to about 220 minutes a day. That's the Department of Ed's guidance for how long synchronous instruction should be on days they're home. Again, just to reiterate, and for transparency's sake, you know, right now, I don't have the staff to meet those guidelines. So I can, you know, there will be synchronous instruction for students who are at home. I can't say what the numbers are going to be barring staffing increases. And again, I don't want to get into, you know, why that is, or is it, you know, why are the numbers so large? That's just the policy, and I have to follow it. You know, we could have separate discussions on the you know, on the philosophy behind it, but I just don't think this is the forum for that. Schools, I just do see something about school supplies. School supply lists were up on the website. Okay, again, it's not required. You can certainly feel free to bring in school supplies if you'd like, but nothing is required. We're going to hold off on donations right now. Some parents had asked about that, but we want to get settled in and make sure that we kind of have a flow of things before we start getting a bunch of additional items into the building that we have to sort. So just, I appreciate the offer for donations. We're going to hold off on that for now. All right, I'm going to, is there anything else, Kim or Alex, before I go to the Q&A? All right, I'm going to start going through the Q&A. Again, if I've addressed the question, I'm just going to go through it. If I have not addressed it, I'll answer it. I do not know what kind of test the students who are in blended, whether it'll be a nasal swab or a cheek swab. All information will be shared for remote students next week. Email Ms. Agronsoni if you're not clear on your class assignment, on your child's class assignment. I don't know if guardians will be, no, I don't anticipate that guardians will be there when testing is done, because we're not going to have that many people in the building. I don't know for sure, but the question is, will guardians be present during testing? That is not my understanding right now. I don't know then if you can opt to have your pediatrician do the testing and bring that in lieu of that. I don't know that. My understanding right now is no, but I'm not 100% sure. I mentioned the ICT students. Not sure. The information on when students will meet their teachers will be available next week. If the school does go full remote, the question is, if the school goes full remote, who would teach the kids? The remote teachers they would have in their blended schedule, or the classroom teacher? If we ended up full remote long term, like if it comes out that we're just not going to start, most likely we would revert back to our traditional program. So we would revert back to regular classes. We follow a regular schedule, the original class assignments, barring any circumstance I'm not thinking of. It would really be just following the school schedule at home, which would also lead us to be able to have 2 teachers in ICT classes and things like that. So if we do go full remote, the intention right now is to switch to just our regular school schedule, except do that on the computer. If you have special, I don't know about teachers recording sessions. We're not sure. Teachers may or may not be doing that. There's no requirement at this time that teachers record their instruction. I mean, parents are asking, can I sit in with my students during their classes? My advice to all parents is, during synchronous instruction, except for the little ones who are going to need support in the beginning, I really think you need to give your children as much autonomy as possible. Okay, and if you do, parents, if you do opt to, be in the area or to support your child when they're doing synchronous instruction, I have to really ask you that it's not something where you're weighing in or things like that. You can certainly be a support to your child, but please, it's not necessarily appropriate for parents to be engaging in the lesson. It's the students and the teachers. But I guess the general guidance would be to, give your children as much autonomy as possible during synchronous instruction. But if you are there, please don't feel as though you're a participant in the lesson. And I don't mean any disrespect by that. I just mean that, we have to, it's not really appropriate for parents to be weighing in, with other people's children. If you have further questions about that, you could certainly email Ms. Agronsoni and we'll get back to you. No, there are no teachers who are refusing to come to work. That's not the reason there's a shortage of teachers. Teachers either get an accommodation or they come to work. I don't know what happens if we don't get the teachers that we need. Well, let me rephrase that. If I don't get the support we need, by bringing in some subs, I can open the building and make sure that the children who are physically in the building every day are covered. The students who are at home on those days, I cannot fully cover those students. So, I can very close with a couple of subs here and there. The teachers that we need, it's probably maybe three teachers just to physically open the doors and cover the in-person students. That larger number, when you get to say 10, that would help me make sure that every student who's at home has a teacher in front of them. So if we didn't get any teachers, I'd have to bring in some subs that would at least physically cover the kids in the building, and we'd have to do the best we can. I think I just answered that question. Well, let me come back. The question was, would school, if we don't get our teachers, will opening be postponed? My understanding right now is there is no plan to postpone openings for individual schools. I believe that I would just have to find substitute teachers and do the very best we can to open the school. I mentioned that one. I mean, the blended learning class sizes, they vary by grade, to be very honest with you. There's 9 grades in the building, so it's, you know, they're I think the largest number of at-home blended students right now is like 50. Okay, and so it's no grade I think is over 50, but again, that could change. If anything, that number would only go down as more parents opt into full remote. Some of these specific details, they change by the day, so I really can't give clear answers on that, unfortunately. But I would say there's no grade right now that has more than 50 students in a blended at-home group. We don't have enough device. Why do you need devices in the building? Isn't every child supposed to have their own? Why would there be a need for a class set? We don't have enough for every child. We're not a one-to-one school. We don't have enough devices for every child to have their own. The guidance would be at the end of the day that the devices that were used will be wiped down and potentially used the next day by another group of students. They'll be wiped down with, sanitized. There will be gym class for some students. Not every grade is getting gym when they're in the building. It's just mathematically, we don't have enough staff to do that, but the gym is maxed out and the teachers' gym schedules are maxed out. However, the students who don't get in the gym will be having gym potentially, especially the younger ones, in their classrooms, with things like Move to Improve and yoga and things of that nature. Our blended remote class is made up of students from the same cohort, making the class size so large. Will they be the same children all days? No, the blended remote classes will vary. So in other words, on days when A is in the building, the blended remote at-home classes will be made up of children in cohorts C and B. On days when B is in the building, the blended remote classes will be made up of children in cohorts A and C, and so on and so forth. We're going to do everything we can to keep them separate, but the numbers will not allow us to be, we're not going to be able to be too strict about that. I'm hoping to prepare my kids for at-home learning. Do you have any advice how to help them focus when optimizing their time and attention? Screen, we could rewatch a recorded lesson, help those. The question relates to preparing your child for at-home instruction. What I would probably, what I would say prior to this and up in between now and the start of school is just getting them used to engaging in online activities, using any educational online website and getting them used to, interacting that way would be the best advice that I can give you right now. If your child can walk home without a parent, do we need to complete it? Depends on the grade. I mentioned that. There will be staggered dismissal. Arrival, we're using various exits, so we won't have to stagger arrival. I mentioned that. Right, I mean, the question about, hard copy resources, in many grades, we don't have, much of our instructions switched to online. We're looking at how many textbooks we have and what we can send home. On many grades, we don't have, if there's 130 students in a grade, we don't necessarily have 130 textbooks to send home. Anything we can get home, we will. And once we kind of figure out, the teachers, quite honestly, are still figuring out how to, pace their instruction and set up their units of study to match this kind of new schedule. So once they get those things figured out, they can give parents resources that they might want to consider to support at-home learning. Yes, we do have children's size masks at school. There is no requirement for testing for anyone at this time, for anybody coming into the building. There's no mandatory testing for staff, students, or anybody. However, the staff are part of the random testing, and staff who would not consent to random testing, this is staff, will be placed on an unpaid leave. I mentioned the remote learning thing about children who can't come to school. Children in kindergarten and 8th grade should bring the supplies for art brought in. If you have a child in kindergarten, 8th grade, they should bring the art supplies into the building. DOH will guide us on a positive case. I mentioned that, and there's also a link in the agenda. If you go on the DOE's website, there's under health and safety, it explains all the protocols very clearly. I'm going to answer this sort of, but I just want to rephrase something. You know, the question, it's a good question. You know, when I set out to make this schedule, and I shared this with parents, probably the first parent webinar, my goal was to place emphasis on content area subjects on the days the children are in the building. So that potentially things like art, you know, the arts, which are equally important, but, you know, we really got to make sure that students are really ELA and math and social studies and science are covered. Staffing issues are making that a problem. So on days students are in the building, they will get most of their major subjects, but there are right now, you know, areas where I cannot cover in the building, and students may have an enrichment period as opposed to a regular subject that potentially could be taught by a substitute teacher. It's random temperature scans. I mentioned that during the day. I don't have the money to hire more teachers is the issue. It's all, I got to be honest with you, I'm not sure about mandatory flu shots. It's strongly advised, especially given the circumstances, but if you should call the main office on Monday and ask Ms. Lanall, Alex, do you know the vaccination? I can't remember if flu shots are on there. I don't think they are, but I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. I don't believe so, but I would confirm with Miss Gina.
You can also get on the DA's website. It does talk, you know, there's a section on vaccinations on the DA website. It lists all the vaccinations you must have. Again, just can't hire more teachers. We just don't have the money to do so. You know, the other thing about hiring more teachers related to that is we don't have what you would call vacancies. You know, so it's not like we had a science teacher retire or an ELA teacher retire, and I now have to get a new science or ELA teacher. I have teachers who are not working in the building, but are still on the school's budget because they received an accommodation to work from home. So I'm still paying their salary. So to hire a teacher to replace them, I'm now paying, you know, 2 teachers for really technically one position on my table of organization. What we need are teachers above and beyond the current staff we have. So that's the biggest, when I say there's no budget for it, it's a matter of, you know, I'm still paying those teacher salaries who are working from home on accommodation because they're still working. The schedules will be out next week as far as remote and blended. There will be live instruction for the students who are at home. The schedule will be out next week.
I'm sorry, Mr. Hardy. Miss Gina just confirmed that flu shots are not required on the.
Gina's on here?
Yeah.
I was text her.
As you are. She texted me.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Gina. Thanks for joining. My son has again, Miss Cindy will get information out next week about getting the medicine to the building. So just keep it on the website there. If you haven't seen anything by, like, you know, Tuesday, Wednesday, you can call the school and talk to Miss Cindy, Nurse Cindy. She'll take care of it. As far as children getting tested who show symptoms, we cannot mandate that. So if a child is symptomatic, taken to the isolation room, taken home, we strongly recommend, the policy of the DOE is to strongly recommend parents go and get their child tested. If they don't, we can't make them do that. However, the child would not be able to return to school until they met certain thresholds, which are outlined on the health and safety piece. And again, if a parent refused random testing, the child would automatically be placed in full remote. The schedules, I think I kind of answered that. The schedules will vary a little bit. It won't exactly mirror what's going on in class. The students at home, they'll have schedules, but it won't mirror exactly the ones who are live, who are physically in the building. I don't know how often the testing will be done. The live streaming question, I mean, that's a UFT issue. It's not, and I don't mean building UFT. It's not that our teachers are refusing. I agree. If the city and the union could come to an agreement where teachers could live stream their instruction, it's a flip of a switch and it would solve 90% of our problems. That is an issue that, again, our teachers, they're not really giving any pushback on that, but the union guidance right now and the union stance is that can't be done. There's a little bit of a legal issue for parents as well, as far as their children being in a room where things are live streamed, but that's a much easier workaround. But that's the answer there. No updates on state testing, and assessments will still be given remotely, just as they would be in the building. Obviously, that's gonna, we'll have to adjust it, but yeah, there will still be testing, assessments throughout the year, but state testing, I'm not sure yet what's happening. Answered that one. Not sure of the format yet for the COVID testing. That sign-on information will be shared next week. Any child, that's a good question. If a child is symptomatic or has quarantined for 14 days, we would, what we would do is we would put them, the goal would be to put them in a full remote program for those 14 days. Now, it's a little bit of another domino effect, to be very honest with you. As I mentioned, there are class size limits, and so if we had, 1 or 2 children, there shouldn't be any issue there. Now, if we have many children, we'd probably be shut down anyway. But if a child goes into quarantine, they will be moved to a full remote program, and we'll figure out a way to work around if there's class size issues there. We've talked about the school books. We're going to get anything home we can. I don't know about random testing or the, I just don't know any of the details around random testing, except that it is planned to happen. Classrooms are sanitized every night with the sprayer, the electrostatic sprayer, once children leave the building, once everybody's out. Summer assignments will be blended into the learning like they always are. I mean, most, none of the summer assignments, except for the older grades, are necessarily mandatory. The older grades more so, but we just want to make sure students have things to stay engaged over the summer. If you have questions about it, you can contact your children's specific teachers once that's there. Mention remote schedules and teacher assignments. Students will be grabbing breakfast on the way up, and lunch. At lunch, the kitchen is going to put stations throughout the building. I think we're going to have about 6 different carts throughout the building where students will then be escorted to get their lunch and back to the classroom. I mentioned if your child's homesick. I mentioned the 16th and the 18th are not full days. They're really just kind of orientations or check-ins. The 16th and the 18th is where you have the opportunity to ask teachers questions, and then there will obviously be open school nights like we would normally have, but they would be virtual. Yes, that's correct, Mr. Brood. Mr. Brood has summarized the class size pretty clearly. If you're in full remote, class size will be 25 to 32, 33 in middle school. But if in blended, 9 to 12 in school, and could be between 50 and 64 when attending remotely, depending on the grade. Thank you. You actually summarized that better than I did. Blended learning. Teachers have time to plan in the morning, as every morning there's a half an hour planning time for teachers. The question is, how the teacher's going to be on the same page. The grade teams will continue to work together. There's a half an hour planning time built into their schedule every day for them to consult with one another. They also have preps throughout the day. It will not be identical, but it will be very close. And in the grades, we have it. Again, it depends a little bit per grade on how exactly the setup is, and it could still change. So those of you that are, I understand wanting to know, what exactly is the setup for my child in this grade. I'm very hesitant to share, give any specifics right now, because I really anticipate our remote numbers go up daily. And until probably even Friday, I'm not going to have a real clear picture of exactly what everything's going to look like per grade. And I understand the frustration there. I mentioned the honors class. They'll get their schedules next week. You're welcome. Thank you. If you're having trouble with kindergarten emails, reach out to Ms. Agrensoni. She can help you. I mentioned that kids who are home will have a mix of synchronous and asynchronous instruction, or live and, stuff they do on their own. Yes, I mentioned Zoom. The fundraising for the question is, can a fundraiser be organized to raise funds for after school activities? On paper, it sounds, it's a nice idea, but it's really, I hate to say it, it's really not worth it. The amount of money that our after school activities cost, it's in the tens. I mean, we spend $50,000 to $100,000 every year on running after school programs. And when you do fundraisers, any money you raise funds for to be, say, donated for to pay teacher salaries and things like that for after school, it goes through the city has a portal where the money's donated. I think there's a 7% charge on there. It really, unfortunately, it's not really worth it. The other issue is, well, that's really the main issue. That's really the main issue. I mentioned random testing. Children will get their mask breaks while they're eating, and then if we're able to get them outside, we'll get them breaks when we can. The question is, what happens to remote classes if many more parents choose to do remote learning? Can the class number increase above the standard? And the official answer is no. We are bound by contractual limits. If this week there's a large, increase in remote instruction, I'm going to sit down and begin reprogramming, which, quite frankly, in the back of my mind, I'm anticipating I'm probably going to have to do before Monday. There might be a period of time where we exceed class size limits until we can get the program straightened out. But the goal would not to be function long-term over class size limits. The goal would be to, keep in mind if more teachers, if more children engage in full remote learning, then that will mean I'll probably need less teachers physically in the building. So I could have teachers, maybe I would be redistributing teachers and reassigning teachers to teach full remote from the school, which could happen. It's a good question. Do children need a permission slip if they're walking home with a middle school sibling? If you have an older child who's walking a younger child home, if you could please send in a note to each child's teacher, okay? Send in a note to the younger child's teacher and to the older child's teacher. What will happen is the older child will have to, they'll be dismissed and they'll have to walk around to wherever that child's getting picked up. But if both teachers know, then we know, wait a second, to give that older child a second to get over there, okay? I mentioned about Maspeth. There will be home, children are going to have assignments on both, in person and at home days. They're obviously on days they're at home, they're going to have a little more time to work on them, because it's not like they will not be, just to clarify, they won't be live, instruction 5.5 hours a day when they're at home. It will most likely be, and again, the guidance varies depending on grade level. The current guidance begins at kindergarten, and from September to October, the DOE is advising about 45 minutes live instruction per day, 45 to, I think, might be 60 minutes. I don't have it in front of me, but then so it might be, 20-minute check-ins, and then the children maybe do some work on their own, and that'll happen throughout the day. And then the amount of that synchronous instruction increases as the children get older. I mentioned the IP students. Will the children be doing remote learning, receive school books? I've discussed that. Yeah, if you need to get a tax test form filled out, if they need extended time, you can get that to me. If you have a child who's taking the tax and they need that extended time, actually, I'm sorry, send that to Ms. Viglietta. Okay, have your child bring it in and get it to the teacher. One thing we're going to obviously try to avoid as much as possible this year is, just a child coming in and saying, "Oh, I have to go see the guidance counselor. I got to give her this form." Have the child give it to the teacher. Okay, send it in. Shoot the teacher an email, maybe just saying, "Listen, so and so is bringing this form in today. I need it signed by Mr. Carty. Could you just keep an eye out for it?" Okay, so just make sure it gets to the teacher, and then the teacher will get it where it needs to go. Yes, there'll be a set schedule for full remote. It's a good question. I don't mean to laugh, but yeah, it's a reality. The question is regarding the report that 16 or so teachers came up positive. I believe the number is 21 right now, citywide, not in our school. Is there any concern or possibility that all this planning will be changed? Yes, it's both a possibility and a concern. And again, those are things that are really beyond my control and our control. What I have to do right now is just put all my effort into planning as though we're opening the doors on September 21st, while in the back of my mind understanding that that could change. And I do share your frustration with that reality. We talked about the workbooks. We're going to get everything home we can. It's about 50. The highest number of, well, right now on any grade, the highest number of blended remote students, again, is around 50. But we'll probably be able to avoid, in most cases, doing groups of 50, where the teacher who's doing blended remote might divide them into, 25 and 25 and do, half-hour sessions throughout the day of various subjects with each group. Again, I just want to give you the reality of what could happen if, I really think that number can only go down as parents, actually mathematically, that number can only go down as parents opt into full remote. That could change entirely in November if many families opt back into blended. It's a good question. Will children in blended learning have a different math teacher in school and someone else while at home? That is a possibility. There are some grades where children would only receive, for example, math instruction at home. There are some grades where I have enough staff, that it works out that, there is a parallel, so that they get a little bit of math instruction in the building and they get some at home. It just varies by grade, and it continues to change based on teachers receiving accommodations. And again, as I'm saying these things, I do understand how bad my answers are, and I'm sorry for that. Please know we're doing our best, I guess would be my follow-up to that. Can kids who are homesick on their in-class day join? I mentioned that. How does instruction look like when students are at home? I mentioned that. There'll be a mix of live and synchronous and asynchronous. Just mentioned the teacher question. I mentioned the accelerated question. New class numbers. If you don't know your child's new class number yet, you could shoot Ms. Agronsoni an email. I mean, the day the cohort won't change. We haven't changed anyone's cohort without telling them. And I don't think we've actually changed anyone's cohort. So don't get too caught up in class numbers. So, for example, I said, now we're up to collapsing 7 different classes. It really has no impact on you or your child. So if 705 was collapsed, class assignments are, quite frankly, kind of meaningless right now for the children that are coming in the building. It's, you're still going to be coming in the same cohort day, but if you don't have that information, you could email Ms. Agronsoni, but that will be out this week. How often will random testing be done? I don't know I'm not real sure how often. I believe I want to say it's about 15% of the students are supposed to be tested if parents, allow it. I talked about that. COVID tests, my understanding, are Department of Health, but I'm not completely clear. We will continue to use Pupil Path and Schedula is the plan right now. There's no reason that should change. I mentioned teacher testing. There right now is no mandatory testing. It's citywide mandatory testing. Strongly encouraged for staff, and they have created. There are testing sites where DOE personnel go to the front of the line and are supposed to get expedited results. I mean, you've probably seen some of that in the news. If you need to, do a video chat with a teacher or with someone about, if you need extra help, after this week, once we get through this next week, as far as explaining the way things are going to work, if you still need extra help, let your child's teacher know, and we'll figure out a way to accommodate, getting someone to speak with you on video chat or whatever the case may be, or even on the phone to help you out. Okay. I mentioned the laptop question. Miss Agronsoni can put that link is on the website. Excuse me, it's on the DOE's website, but you can also contact her.
It's also on our website. Sorry.
Thank you, Alex. That's okay. No, thanks for weighing in. It is on our website. I mentioned that. I appreciate the donation stuff. Probably, the best advice I could say is the second donation question. I'm hearing it again. Supporting the PTA. The PTA has much more flexibility in spending. So now that's not to say they could hire staff, but they have the latitude to say, I have a specific group of vendors from which I can spend, from which I can buy things using school funds. PTA is not as limited as I am. So Kim, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if I think your dollars will go farther donated to PTA, because oftentimes, and they've always been fantastic about it, anything we've needed, for example, they hired the gardener to come do an external cleanup of the grounds. Mr. Help me, Kim. Rocco, Mr. Rocco, whose children go to the school. He's working with the PTA, thanks to both of them. But you know, if you want to make a monetary donation, I think the best thing you can do is donate to the PTA because they have more latitude to buy things than I do. Yeah, I mean, students are in the same classroom for the 5.5 hours, you know, but they will get, you know, teachers will certainly do, you know, breaks and you know, whether now some students actually get to the gym for PE. We can't accommodate every student when they're in the building. It's just not possible. But the ones that don't, teachers will do breaks. They'll get up, they'll stretch. You know, between classes, they'll have time to, you know, relax a little bit. So it's not a matter of don't interpret as students just sitting there 5.5 hours, you know, straight ahead. We do understand it's going to be a tough run for them. So we will make sure that they get time to kind of break up the day. I mentioned that. No, you can't. The question is, if we get a test with their pediatrician prior to school and share the results, can they be exempted for random testing? No, and the reason is, you know, I could get tested today and find out I'm negative and catch corona tomorrow. So that's okay. We did it. We killed my AirPods again. Alex, can you hear me?
Yep, we're good.
Jack and Elizabeth, could you reduce the background noise a bit, please? As much as you can. Sorry. Yes, you can change to full remote at any time. Parents, that's the one change parents can make. Yes, parents coming out for dismissal should have masks on. That's okay. Kindergarten, 8th grade, someone asked about the art supplies on the list. If your child's in kindergarten or 8, please send the art supplies in. Don't apologize for questions, no worries. You'll be contacted about your child's kindergarten class, but if you're not sure, you can feel free to email Ms. Agransoni this week. I mentioned the book thing. If you still have questions about whether or not you need books, please, you can email the grade AP, which is Mr. Rampatap, or you just call the office Monday and find out who to get in contact with. No problem. I appreciate it. You're welcome. And I don't know if guidance is, we're using guidance pretty loosely. We are the guidance. We don't have the capacity to do temperature checks 100%. That is not the guidance. That's not a school decision. It's a city policy. The temperature checks are to be done by parents in the morning, and that's where the screening. You know, the first question on the screening, I think it's the first one. Does your child have a temperature of over 100.4? Okay, so it is the incumbent on the parents to make sure they're taking their children's temperatures every morning. If someone does not have a thermometer, let the school know, and we will do. You know, we'll do everything we can to get you one. Please, again, don't just, if you need an extra one, please don't ask because we have a limited supply, but if it is an issue, let us know. Yes, students could be taught by another teacher regardless of what model they're in. No, the 15 minutes per DOE guidelines is not accurate. There is a gradually increased level of recommended minutes depending on the grade and the time of year. So I'll put that together and get up on the website. You know, it'll increase a little, but no, 15 minutes is not, your child, as of right now, it's not just 15 minutes of online learning. But I am going to just qualify that statement by saying that right now I don't have the staff to meet the recommended guidelines for you know, online learning at home, and I'm hoping to get that rectified. If the class goes into quarantine, we'll incorporate them into full remote learning. Somehow, got to figure that one out. It is a concern, I understand it. It's the question, how many students, teachers, or combination of the two testing positive will shut down the school? The clearest guidance right now is two positive cases from different classes could shut down the school. There are other, that is the clearest way right now.
We do not have plastic partitions for children's desks. Children will be seated 6 feet apart and wearing masks. Can I bring my child to school? Can I bring my child to school with my, that might be a typo. I believe it's car. Yeah, you can certainly drive your child to school. I think that's a typo. But again, I'm going to ask, 79th Street's good. Well, we have a lot fewer students, but it's more important than ever, parents. You're going to have to make arrangements in the morning about, traffic. You're really going to have to park legally. And, that means parking in the perimeter of the park and then walking regardless of weather. We cannot be blocking, double parked, and there's no parking on Penelope. Please keep that in mind. That's one of the few, that's an issue every year. And just to be transparent, every year I ask the precinct to come and enforce that because it's a safety issue. Parents end up blocking crosswalks and double parking, and, people get frustrated when they can't get by and they'll zip around somebody quickly. And we have had a couple children actually and adults get hit by cars, and we've had some near misses. So please make sure you're parking responsibly. Yeah, the kindergarten meetings will take place next week. Okay, and information will be shared out before then. No sports teams this year. I'm sorry for that, and believe me, that's tough on me because I think you know how much I enjoy that. I mentioned the online class, the hours. The hours of remote learning will be, the children will be instructed between 8:30 and 2, but don't misunderstand. There's not going to be someone on there for 5.5 hours every day. It'll be a mix of, meeting with the teacher, working on their own, meeting with the teacher and working on their own, that kind of thing. If you decide to go full remote, the transition, it's pretty much instant. So if you do opt for full remote, you fill out the survey, and it updates. The survey on our site updates every couple of days. But if you let us know, we can make arrangements for that. We don't know about speech therapy and wearing masks. Not 100% sure. There are face shields provided for some of the related service providers in circumstances where I know specifically with speech teachers have to be able to, students need to be able to see their speech teachers, how they're speaking and enunciating and things like that. There are circumstances where masks can be removed, if distance is maintained, is my understanding, and a face shield may be provided, but they're very limited. And if it's something where I believe if it's something where it's consistently needed, where it's not effective without a mask, that might have to be done virtually by teletherapy. We certainly will work with you though. So feel free to, reach out, discuss this with your child's speech teacher. And they'll do everything they can to accommodate, make sure they get your child the best services possible. Mention school supplies, bring them in as you can. Throughout the day, teachers will post their schedules as far as when they're available for help and things like that. We will get guidance on setting up for remote instruction out to everybody on Zoom and whatnot. Oops, went too far. Yes, I answered the email question. Day one, the best thing to send your students in with, that's a good question. What should I send my children in with on the first day? I would send them in with, some pencils, pens, erasers, and maybe a notebook to start with. However, again, the specific supply lists are on the school website. If you're not sure, teachers will address that next week, and they might tell you, listen, we want you to make sure you have this stuff specifically. But if you're unsure, something to write with, something to write on is a fine place to start for the first day of school. If you want to donate to the PTA, Kim, what should parents do if they want to donate to the PTA? What's easier for you?
We are trying to figure that out. We'd prefer a check or cash, but we'll figure out where we can meet them to get that donation. Okay,
so I'm sure they'll get that information out to you. I'm glad I'm not the only one that lacks answers. Which rooms are the first graders in? I was looking at the inspection report, but don't know which room they were in. The first grade rooms haven't changed, so it's, sorry, I went too far. Sorry, I'm thinking off the top of my head as I'm scanning down. First grade are in the second floor, 250, 221, 221, 219, 250. Yeah, there's only three. So 219, 221, and 250, if I'm not mistaken, off the top of my head. But again, that inspection report, everything on there is going to be addressed by the 21st. And if it's not, then those rooms will be taken offline and we're going to have to move them. I haven't received any information that there will be any change to the crossing guard. There should be, yeah, we should have a crossing guard out there every day. All right, that was the last one in the chat. Let's see how I did time-wise. I said it was going to be an hour and a half. All right, we're at almost 2 hours. That's okay. All right, folks, I'm going to, hang on, let me just get rid of the Q&A. There we go. That was all the questions in the Q&A. Again, if I did not get to your question, just please email your grade AP and CC Miss Agronsoni. Please don't misunderstand me. I'm not discouraging parents from emailing me, but I am, quite frankly, starting to feel a little bit guilty because I am discovering that I'm missing emails that were sent to me 4 and 5 days earlier. It's not intentional. It's just there's a lot of emails and a lot of communication. So your best bet is to do it that way. Alex, Kim, is there anything else that you could think of that I need to address?
I think so. So no.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna, you know, I know I've just spent 2 hours really providing a lot of information that I'm sure frustrates you and probably didn't do much to lower anxiety. I apologize for that, but I want to be very honest with everyone. I don't want to mislead you. I want you to know exactly where we stand. And again, like I said earlier, my goal right now, my number one goal is to get us ready for just to be able to open the door September 21st and make sure that I can have teachers with every child. Okay, if we get a significant increase in staff, you know, we'll be able to gradually improve services as we get staff in, but it really is continually evolving as far as the number of children in full remote and teachers receiving and staff in general receiving accommodations. So it's not a perfect product right now, but we're going to make it the very best product that we can. And that's, you know, kind of been my message to the teachers who also feel your anxiety, because the messages I'm giving you are very similar. I'm giving them the same ones. They want to do the very best they can for your children, and they want to know how to do that. And in this model, we're all still kind of figuring it out. It's changing daily. And, but like I said, the only comment I can make for sure is that we are completely committed to providing the very best, you know, educational product that we can for your kids, and we'll keep working on that every day. So thank you again. If I didn't get your question, shoot at your grade AP and parent coordinator. Thank you for your patience, for your understanding, your flexibility. It is really is greatly appreciated. I want you to know that. And looks like it really is going to be a beautiful weekend. So I hope everybody has a chance to relax and enjoy it some. Okay. So thanks very much. I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting. It kind of ends immediately. So, you know, say goodbye to everyone and enjoy the weekend. And if you're watching football tomorrow, go Browns.